Sometimes a parking problem can be a good thing. Not long ago, I told the story of my mother's last wishes and how she wanted a particular song played at her funeral. Well, it prompted some interesting response and made me realize that many people don't attend funerals because it makes them sad or uncomfortable to look down the road and imagine their own. But there are other folks who think very practically about them. I remember one man who arrived rather late at my father's memorial, apologizing because he had trouble finding a place to park. He smiled and said, "Wouldn't that be something to have a parking problem because of all the folks who come to your funeral?" Well, I attended his funeral last week. He was a good man who passed away after living 91 years. Oftentimes when someone has lived to that age, the funeral is a small and quiet affair because a 91-year-old has probably outlived most of his or her contemporaries, and the event is frequently a small family celebration of life. This event was different, however. There were so many people at this memorial that there was a parking problem. Young and old mourners attended this funeral, and it lasted more than 2 hours. There were eulogies who recalled this man's life as a leader, a mentor, a businessman, a philanthropist, a family man, a good neighbor, a man of faith. Choirs sang, proclamations were read, children and teenagers cried alongside the elderly. This was a man who will be missed. After the service, even as long as it was, folks stood outside the church and talked and reminisced until they had to be reminded that they needed to leave so that the family could move on to the cemetery for the burial. At one point, a family member mentioned to me that perhaps she should have made the service a little shorter. Well, I shook my head and I said, no. Movies last 2 hours. Football games can last longer. It takes longer than that sometimes to roast a turkey or give the house a good cleaning. The American Idol finale lasted more than 2 hours. When someone lives 91 years and touches so many lives, 2 hours of my life to stop and say, here was a good man and we were blessed to know him, is not much to ask. In fact, spending 2 hours occasionally to honor a life well lived is a good way to recommit ourselves to living a life that honors God with good works, good friends, good service, and maybe even someday a parking problem. See you soon.